Good evening. It's good to be present here with you. And we want what is said this evening to be to God's honor and glory. I was blessed by the selections of songs that we sang at the beginning because I know the authors. The first one was by Stanley Brubaker. Didn't know him real well, but in my visiting schools, well, he was a teacher at a school in southern Michigan, and I got to know him through school visitation. But Tender Love of Jesus was written by Ruth Emsweiler, who was my teacher when I was in second and third grade. And I have good memories of that time in my life. She has long passed away, but still good memories of her teaching abilities and putting up with a child that I have embarrassing memories of liking to touch her under her chin. No idea. But anyhow, I still remember reaching up and trying to get her attention that way. And she put up with it. Okay. Got a little pre-sermon, I guess. And that is taken from 2 Timothy chapter 2, verses 1 and 2, where Paul is talking to Timothy, and he says, "Thou therefore, my son, be strong in the grace that is in Christ Jesus." Excellent advice. But then he says something very important in verse 2, and he says, "And the things that thou hast heard of me," so Timothy, you've heard instruction from me, "the things that thou hast heard of me among many witnesses, the same commit thou to faithful men." Let's talk about this like we have generations. We have Paul. Then we have Timothy. Then we have Timothy talking to men. And the last phrase says, "Who shall be able to teach others also?" Is our teaching program good enough for 4 generations? Or for the retelling in 4 groups of people? You ever play that game of, I don't know what they call it in different communities, gossip or whatever, where you whisper in somebody's ear and they whisper in somebody else's ear, and they go down the row of people, and the last person says what they heard, and it's completely different than what the first person gave? That's not good enough for Christian education. What comes out at the end had better be the same as what went in at the beginning. If it was truth, it was truth, and it stays truth, and truth does not change. "The things that thou hast heard of me among many witnesses, the same commit thou to faithful men, who shall be able to teach others also." That's commitment, and that's committed people to the truth. They love the truth. They hang on to the truth, and they pass the truth on. Okay, then you can turn to Hebrews chapter 12, and we'll be reading a bit in that chapter. Hebrews chapter 12, beginning at verse 1. Not all these verses apply, but we will start there. This chapter follows the faith chapter and refers back to that. It says, "Wherefore, seeing we also are compassed about with so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which doth so easily beset us, and let us run with patience the race that is set before us. Looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is set down at the right hand of the throne of God. For consider him that endured such contradiction of sinners against himself, lest ye be wearied and faint in your minds. Ye have not yet resisted unto blood, striving against sin, and ye have forgotten the exhortation which speaketh unto you as unto children." Now, pay attention to these next verses. "My son, despise not thou the chastening of the Lord, nor faint when thou art rebuked of him. For whom the Lord loveth, he chasteneth, and scourgeth every son whom he receiveth." Notice there, for whom the Lord loveth, he chasteneth. That's a two-step program there. God loves us. And have you ever heard people talk about the love of God and how God loves me too much to send me to hell? God loves me too much to do this. And it's all about the love of God. Or they may have the mentality and thought that God is constantly chasing me. Does God love me? Is the question that they ask. It's pretty obvious that my life is rocky. It's a mess. It's got all sorts of problems in it. Does God really love me? Verse 6 says, "For whom the Lord loveth, he chasteneth, and scourgeth every son whom he receiveth." Scourging sounds pretty deep. There's going to be some marks there. Verse 7, "If ye endure chastening, God dealeth with you as with sons. For what son is he whom the Father chasteneth not? But if ye be without chastisement, whereof all are partakers, then are ye bastards and not sons. Furthermore, we have had fathers of our flesh, which corrected us, and we gave them reverence. Shall we not much rather be in subjection unto the Father of spirits and live? For they verily for a few days chastened us after their own pleasure, but he for our profit, that we might be partakers of his holiness. Now, no chastening for the present seemeth to be joyous." You have memories of your father or mother using the rod, and it was not a joyous occasion. Laughing was not a good idea at that point. It would get you in trouble. Now, no chastening for the present seemeth to be joyous, but grievous. Nevertheless, afterward it yieldeth the peaceable fruit of righteousness unto them which are exercised thereby. The peaceable fruit of righteousness. Wow. All of us like peace. We like things to stay the same, or we don't like things to rock the boat and cause problems and trouble. And so we like that. But are we willing to pay the cost to get there? And it says it's not just peace, it's a peaceable fruit of righteousness. It's a good kind of peace. I suppose there's kinds of peace where everybody just lets you alone. I think of a grandson of mine who can be very loud and boisterous and make a lot of noise. But when his cousins or his siblings make too much noise, he has complained before to his mother, "I just wish I could find a place where there's some peace." Well, start with yourself. So there's that. But a peaceable fruit of righteousness. There's so much in that. And I have not gotten to the bottom of what all it means to have the peaceable fruit of righteousness. But it says here that chastening yields that. And let's use another word that we're maybe more familiar with. Let's use discipline. Discipline in my life yields a fruit that brings peace and righteousness into my life. Now, that's discipline that is godly. There's other kinds of discipline as well. There are some people who are very disciplined. People who walk on their knees for miles, or, some way or another they will bring pain to their body, which is a discipline, but it really doesn't yield this peaceful fruit of righteousness. So we're not talking about that. We're talking about godly discipline and how it works in a person's life, what it yields, what it brings. Maybe we should keep reading a little bit farther. Wherefore, lift up the hands which hang down and the feeble knees. Teachers, parents, that's your job. My child's depressed. I'm depressed too. So let's sit down and cry together? No, we're supposed to be the adult here, and we're going to lift up, what does it say there again? Lift up the hands which hang down and the feeble knees. Fear. Too often children, as they do their lessons, get poor grades because of fear. I'm afraid I don't know how to do this. They fear a test before they have tried. I'm sure I can't do this test. That's fear speaking. And it's our job as the adult in that situation to lift up those, to strengthen those feeble knees, to lift up those hanging hands, get them to clutch a pencil and use the brain that God gave them. And make straight paths for your feet and their feet, lest that which is lame be turned out of the way, but let it rather be healed. That struggling student, if you could just put a little more effort into it, could you help that lameness? Can you help that child into a straight path? Maybe he won't produce, as we talked about this morning, maybe he won't produce 100-fold, as in the parable of the sower, but maybe he'll produce 60-fold instead of the 30-fold. Maybe he does 30-fold instead of 0, because we have put effort into making a straight path for his feet. And that sometimes involves research on our part. I don't know what, I've talked to so many teachers, I don't know what else to do with this child. And sometimes my job is just to listen. I try to give advice, and sometimes I feel like I fall woefully short. In fact, there's times at the end of a conversation where I'll say, did I help you with it? Oh yeah, I think I've got a lot of ideas. I think I've got things I want to try. Well, good. I'm not sure what I did outside of listening and affirming that you can do this. Parents, teachers, that's our job. To raise our children up. Not to raise them up to a level where pride is prevalent or to stroke their ego, but to raise them up to do their best, to serve other people. Something I didn't say this morning, and I think it would be good to add it now. Your school success is not measured by grades. Yes, we use grades as a measurement. Don't get me wrong there. But and the public school measures by grades. And sometimes we're tempted to measure by grades. But if a child leaves his school years and has an enhanced character, a godly character, if he has been trained in godly character traits, and there's two parts, godly character and, now I'm working off memory here, and he has training for service. Those two things. If a child leaves his school years and he has been trained in godly character and trained to serve other people, you have been successful. He may not still grasp all that stuff about algebra. He may not be able to write very well. He may not be able to spell very well. But a godly character and training for service are the two main things that tell us whether we have been successful in our school. Now, if a child also gets good grades, and is prepared for every good work to help other people. He understands more clearly the right path God has for him. Yes, that's the bonus. I think that's as far as we'll read there in Hebrews 12. So this evening we want to talk about the necessity of discipline. And I probably will interchange the words teacher and parents back and forth. And they are interchangeable for this evening. What is discipline? Discipline is training given in love that develops self-control, character, and responsibility. And by the way, no child is naturally self-disciplined. Some children lean that way, but a child left to themselves will bring what does Proverbs say? Bring their mother to shame, bring disgrace upon their father. They tend to slothfulness, laziness, unmotivated. So part of the school training is we are training them to have disciplined lives. See, discipline can be used, that word's kind of an interesting English word. It can be used in different ways. We can discipline a child, and then that child can discipline themselves, and we say they have discipline. And, you get the meaning of that word. I hope you understand that well. God disciplines his children because he loves them. And that should be our reasoning for discipline in the classroom, in our home, and in our homes. Because I love this child. I love you too much to let you continue with this bad behavior. I love you too much to unschool you. You heard that phrase? Is that phrase that you know about? I just read about that probably in the last 12 months. Unschooling. We'll just let the child learn what they want to learn. And it's not working out. Because the child left to themselves, yeah, they do learn some things. They learn how to be lazy, but they learn how to be undisciplined. Discipline is in keeping with God's character and purpose of righteousness. Remember, discipline produces the peaceable fruit of righteousness. That's something you need to keep in the back of your mind as we talk this evening. Because man has a fallen nature, God encourages us to teach our children to get past that through discipline. This is not talking about the new birth experience. The new birth experience helps with discipline dramatically. And sometimes I think there have been instances where children became so self-motivated and self-disciplined that they did not feel the need for salvation either. But I think we need to let the Holy Spirit take care of that. I don't think it's our job to try to decide how much is too much. We tend to err on the side of not enough if we're doing it correctly. And we'll talk more about that in a bit. Few people like rules and personal discipline. You have to think about that yourself. Do I like rules? It makes me grit my teeth a little bit, and don't try to tell me what to do. But we like the stability that rules bring. I think of the thing we heard in our world about, I'm not even remember what the words were, but it was where they wanted the police to have more, to be defund the police. Did they really want the end product of that? And that's not our job as Christians, to be policemen, okay? But simple as I am, I understand what a world would be like without structure and discipline and rules in it. It's chaos. You can go through history and find times like that. And I understand some of their anger about certain situations and all, but defunding the police, really? That's what you want? Do you want the end product of that? We don't like rules. We don't like personal discipline, but we like the security that those things, a disciplined environment, brings. Discipline helps produce character. A child that has been disciplined properly learns about integrity. He learns about honesty. He learns about being prompt. When mom said to come, he better come. When dad said, it's time to go to bed, it better be time to go to bed. What happens in our homes? Do our children know that we won't be serious until after the third telling of them to do something? Industriousness, contentment, gratitude. Those are all traits that are developed by discipline in a child's life. And an interesting thing is that disciplined people often have a better self-image and better attitudes because they've been disciplined. Because someone cared enough to pay attention to them when they needed it. My daughter and son-in-law have had some foster children for a while. And those children constantly test the boundary. They were 3 and 4 when they got them. They're 5 and 6 now, and they're going through a rough time there with the state with them, but it's not part of the story of what I want to tell right now. Those children constantly push the boundary. Do you really love me enough to tell me no? They may throw tantrums. The girl can bite and scream and hit. But at the end of the day, she wants to know that she's loved. That there are boundaries. That David and Crystal care about them and want what's best for them. Discipline helps determine a person's character, his attitudes, his habits, his outlook, and his destiny. Where will he be in 10 years? Where will she be in 50 years in eternity? No child is naturally self-disciplined. Students need external controls and restraints until self-discipline is developed. And that brings us to something, some big words that we don't use a lot, and that's intrinsic motivation and extrinsic. Intrinsic comes from within. That is usually not what is experienced first in a child's life. Extrinsic motivation. That means some outside source puts pressure on that child to discipline themselves. And it may be positive. It may be things like stickers. It may be some reward. It may be a candy bar. It may be a smiley face on a graded paper. But those are extrinsic rewards. The child looks forward to that. I heard a teacher just recently talking about the fact that she always puts smiley faces by the grade, especially any grade over like 95%. And I think one day she kind of thought, is this really necessary? I think they were sixth graders. Is it really necessary? And she kind of shrugged her shoulders. This was after hours, and she didn't do it. And the next day, there were several students. Why didn't you put a smiley face on? Sixth graders like extrinsic motivation too. We all like extrinsic motivation. But that should not be the driving force as we get older. You and I should be driven from within, from a desire within our hearts to do what is right, to do what is good. Knowing that I have done the right thing should be reward enough. I shouldn't have to be paid for my goodness, for my righteousness. That's called intrinsic motivation. And children are not born with intrinsic motivation. They need external controls and restraints until self-discipline is developed. God has ordered discipline to be a part of the training for each child. And as we think about school, one more point. Discipline enhances the learning process. The more chaotic a classroom is, the more chaos that is there, the less learning takes place. I visit all kinds of classrooms, and I find out there are many different types of ways to teach. Someone mentioned about their teacher would drop a pen and wanted to be able to hear it hit I hope it was a hardwood floor, not a carpet floor, but could hear it hit the floor. I can't teach that way. My hearing's not good enough. So children have to speak out loud and to talk to me. I've been in classrooms where the teacher and the students all whispered. And I couldn't tell what they were talking about because my hearing's not that good. So when I teach in a classroom, I have to talk out loud, and the children get used to it. They are not allowed to carry on conversations of their own, but when I talk to them, they are to answer back in a normal tone. So to some people, I probably have a louder classroom. But we try to keep it from being chaotic, full of chaos. And my hat's off to those teachers that can do the whisper thing. It is interesting to sit in the back of a classroom and you can't hear anything going on. That's interesting. Okay, so we want to look at something that I want to put on the board this evening. And maybe I just need to do some drawing for a bit. So I've drawn two lines. This line is 0 to 100. Don't know if you can see that down there. This line is 0 to 100. Okay? Can you understand this? This is 0% love. This is 100% love. This is 0% discipline. This is 100% discipline. Where do you want to be as a parent or a teacher? We want to be down here in this quadrant, we say. I don't want you to be up in this. You're in the right quadrant if you're up here, but I want you to be down in here somewhere. It is unrealistic for you to try to tell me that you are clear down here. All right? None of us are there. We get frustrated, and our love rubs off a little bit. We're not quite as loving as we should be. We get tired, and our discipline slows down a little bit, and we don't discipline like we should. Happens to all of us. And if you can tell me that you are clear down in this corner, I want to talk to you, because you and I can go out and make a lot of money explaining to somebody else how to do that, I think. Just doesn't happen that way, but we want to be down here in this corner. And these corners represent 4 different types of parents, parenting skills. In the early 1970s, there was some poll that was taken on I think it was on a college campus, but I'm not sure about that, of 4,000 teenagers who were asked to describe what their home life was like. And out of that came these results of different types of parents. The parents in this corner are neglectful parents. I'm not sure why they're having children. And if you're a neglectful teacher, you shouldn't be in the classroom. They have very little love, and they have very little discipline. In fact, they may be clear over on the 0 on the discipline line. They may occasionally show some love, but overall they're neglectful. And as we think of this as far as parents, neglectful parents are not there for their children. Their life is busy with other things. Their children are a burden and something to be endured. They're not quite sure why they had them either. Neglectful parents flee. And you can put responsibility there. Or they flee their children. They're not interested in what's happening with their children. None of us should be anywhere close to this corner. Down in this corner are permissive parents. They're low in discipline, but they're high in love. They love their child too much to say no. They love their child too much to use the rod or some other type of punishment to bring about desired results. They love their child too much to provide discipline in that child's life. Does that make sense? To love too much that you don't discipline? You really think that through, that doesn't work. They fear their child. The child's in control here. Oftentimes, the children in these families or this setting in a school, the teacher that is permissive, the children are actually yearning for stability. They're yearning for rules, and they're yearning for discipline in their lives. And they push the limits. And the teacher or the parent is very frustrated because they won't behave. They're the ones that you see throwing a tantrum in the grocery store when they can't have a candy bar. And guess what? Mom or dad finally gives in just to stop the tantrum. They've learned that the child learns in this situation that they are in control. Deep down in, the child doesn't like it, but that's what they've learned to put up with, and so they control the parent. They control the teacher. Once you have gotten to this spot in a classroom as teachers, you have a hard path back. I think of a story of a young man who was teaching at a school in Canada. Maybe I should back up and tell another story first. I don't know if any of you know Elmer Glick. He's another school rep. When he was a young man, he went along with a bunch of other youth into one of the big cities there in Pennsylvania to teach Bible school for 2 weeks, summer Bible school. And his job was to be a teacher of seventh and 8th grade students. And he will tell you with embarrassment that his goal was that he was going to make those children like him. He was going to be their buddy. He was going to be their friend. And he will also tell you that at the end of the first week, somebody else had to take the class because it was in such chaos. His mixture of love and discipline wasn't in the right measures. And some days you're going to feel like you're mostly disciplined and you're really not getting an opportunity to show much love, but through your discipline, your love must shine. So, discipline that I give to a child has to be in the right attitude from my heart. Anyway, that young man in Canada that was teaching, he had the same problem as Elmer Glick, and by Christmas time, he offered the school board that he would resign because things were in such shambles. And his teachers were tempted to give up at that point. That's basically, he was giving the school board an out if they wanted to fire him, but he was also frustrated himself. The school board sat down and talked with him, and they said, I don't know what his name was, but doesn't matter. They said, would you be willing to keep on trying if we come alongside you and help you, but you have to do what we say? Yes, he would be willing to try that. So the first day back after Christmas vacation, the school board came into the school. The teacher remained seated, and the school board told the children how it was going to turn out. Things are going to be different. Mr. So-and-so is going to do things different. We expect you to obey, and he has our full support. And that young man put real effort into that, and by the end of the year, things weren't perfect, but they were 100% better. He had control of the school. The children were enjoying the school year. They were learning new things. And they were joyful about it. They were having a good time. There was good learning happening. And he went on to teach for at least 2 more years, I think, at that location. And he was ready to quit at Christmas. It was because of this problem right here. And we can live in fear of hurting our children's feelings. I think we need to be sensitive to our children, and not all children react to the same disciplines the same way. There's so much more that can be said about how to discipline. Just think about, though, where you are at in your discipline program. That's the third type. That's authoritarian. They are high in discipline, but low in love. Let me look at my notes just a little bit here. "80% of the 4,000 people that were polled felt their parents came in that. Now, this is 1970. Would it still be that way? Or would we be down here now? Do remember, I think that these things can be a bit skewed. I gave this one time in Alberta for a parent-teacher meeting. And a father and his son came up to me after the meeting, and they were kind of smiling, and they had conferred between themselves. And the father thought he was probably here, but the son thought he was over here. So these numbers are only so good, but they do show us. And a rebellious child may automatically think that he has an authoritarian father or mother. These fight with their children. There's a constant battle going on in a home, in a classroom, where that is taking place. And oftentimes, it's a pride issue with the parent, is this child will not embarrass me. I will discipline them morning, noon, and night, harshly, so that they will be very obedient and subservient to me in such a way that they will never embarrass me in public. And they care nothing about showing love to the child in that process. I knew a situation in my community. There was a young girl. I think she was either in first or second grade, and we were having a Christmas program. And she had a part to say by herself, maybe just like a 2-line or 4-line poem, very short. And her parents had practiced with her on and on and on. She knew it perfectly, knew it very well. Well, the night of the program came, and there was maybe 200 people sitting out there, and she stood up at the railing at the edge of the podium, and she looked out at that group of people, and she promptly forgot everything she knew, which was pretty obvious because I still remember her eyes rolling up in her head to where almost all you could see was white. I didn't know you could do that. And that was unfortunate because her teacher was sitting on the front row and was there to help. But the child's eyes were otherwise involved. Finally, she unrolled them, looked at the teacher who prompted her with the first word, and immediately everything came back, and she, with a smile, said her part and sat down. That's the funny part. The sad part is that her parents were deeply embarrassed by that and punished her severely at home because she embarrassed them. And I can't look at that one instance and say that is why that lady is now divorced. I don't know if she's remarried or not, lives in sin, is far from God or not. That one instance isn't all, but you understand, it's the parenting style that causes a problem there. How did that child feel? I mean, this is a Christmas program, we expect them to make mistakes. Everybody else out there was hurting for her while she was struggling, and we were so relieved. The congregation was so relieved when she finally got it. We all sighed with relief. And the parents just need to smile and say, yeah, that's the way it is. You practice and practice with them, and it doesn't seem like it does any good, whatever we say. But no, you embarrass me in public, I will punish you for that. Authoritarian. They fight with their children. Very similar word, but it's authoritative. Means that we do show authority, but it's with a different spirit than authoritarian. Authoritarian runs along the same line as a dictatorship. Authoritative says, I will listen to you when I've heard you've done something wrong, but I will still punish you if you have done something wrong, but I will hear your side of the story. I love you. I love you too much to let you continue on in your poor behavior. I mean, whatever. There's all sorts of things we can say there. And that's the corner we want to be in. We want to be an authoritative parent, teacher. An interesting dynamic in the home. See, teachers, you're one person in the classroom, like you're a single parent, okay? But parents in the home, the fortunate, have two. And the interesting thing is that mom and dad are not usually at the same spots. We hope that mom and dad are both down in here. But is mom sometimes over here? Maybe dad's over here. Mom's over here. You understand what I'm saying? We're two different people. We respond differently to different situations. I was thankful for the help of my wife in training our children in that she related to our son. We have one son and 3 daughters. She related to our son in some ways better than I did. But on the flip side, it seemed like I could relate better to some of the girls' problems. So we complemented each other. We worked together as a team. And the result, we got flee, we got fear, we got fight. The result for this, and you don't know that right away. You won't find that out right away because you won't understand whether you've been successful until it's too late to change the course. You understand now? I didn't realize that what it was like to fellowship with my children until they were mid to upper teens. And it really came home when they were in youth. Marlee and I don't necessarily go to bed real early, and they had a curfew. They needed to be in by 10:30. So many times we were still up at that point. And it was a blessing to us when they came in and wanted to sit and tell us about their evening instead of just diving into their bedroom. But I didn't foresee that happening. I couldn't have told you back when they were 5 and 6 year olds that I have a program that I am working on that will ensure that I get to fellowship with my children at that point. We just do the best we can, and we focus on this high percentage of discipline, high percentage of love. And it brings the peaceable fruit of righteousness. Any questions about this? Sometimes I get to rattling on, and I think I should ask if there's questions. You're saying, is there a lot of talking and instead of... We will talk this out, okay? And talking has its place. But yes, that is correct. I've had some experience with parents that my dad had a phrase. He said, I just talk and talk and talk and I don't get anywhere. Well, maybe a little more discipline then. In my own home life, my mother did, in my memory, my mother did more of the disciplining than my father did. I think I'm the youngest in the family. I'm 7 years behind. I was kind of an only child. I have 5 siblings that were born in 7 years, and then 7 years later, I came along. And something must have happened in there because my other siblings know about dad's spankings. I don't remember a spanking from my father. I loved him, and he had good advice, and I respected him. But there was a different dynamic with Mom, who was not afraid to wield the paddle. So they complemented each other there. Other questions? Thank you. Some interesting results also came out because of that. They looked at the children's self-image. This was first, the self-image, and actually this was next. Children from this setting had a better self-image than, let's see, than this one and this one. This was last. This has the poorest self-image. Response to discipline. And at this point, all the rest of them, this ends up last. But response to discipline, this is first. Let's see here. Yes, response to discipline and authority outside the home. I might as well just put those numbers in. What do I do with that? Let's do it this way. 1, 2, 3, 4. Response to discipline and authority outside the home is 4, 2, 3, or I'm sorry, 4, 2, 1, 3. Acceptance of parental religion, 4, 2, 1, 3. Acceptance of parental lifestyle, 4, 2, 1, 3. See, this thing right here produces a child that rebels against authority. Even if they know it's better for them, they will rebel against it because, and oftentimes a child in this setting says to himself, I will not be like my father. I will not be like my mother. And they turn around and go right down that path. So parents, teachers, we have a sobering responsibility to love the children in our care and to discipline the children in our care. Can we do it in our own strength? Is the information that I've given you here tonight enough? No, we need God's strength. We need God's help. There are so many twists and turns in that path of parenting, of teaching, of providing a structured, stable environment. And we need God's help. But I hope this gives us some guidelines to help us as we look to God for further guidance as well. These results heavily reveal that an adult authority's relationship greatly affects the character and the response of a child. The way I provide that environment for a child, whatever environment I find myself in here, greatly has a great effect on a child. It takes love, courage, energy, and persistence to be an authoritative teacher or parent who also fellowships with his children. We can be friends with them, but we can't be their buddy. So as we go forth from here, I challenge you to put forth effort to be the teacher, the parent that you should be. Regardless of the mistakes of your parents, you can change. One thing I've learned in my years as a church leader is the only person I can change is myself. I can influence other people. I can help other people. If the other people want advice and help, yes, I can help them. But I can't change them. They have to want change themselves. But I can be the type of person that comes alongside and that provides an opportunity for them to change as well. May we be that channel for change, for discipline in a child's life. May the Lord bless. Let's bow our heads for prayer.